Yo, what is going on? Sharp thinking here. So, I wanted to do a quick video. Well, actually, not a quick video, but I wanted to do a conclusive analysis video on this Hinderer Firetac. So, this is a knife I've had in my possession for almost 6 months, maybe a little bit more. And I've used it quite a bit. It is the pre-tri-way version, which is the preferred version by me. I don't like the tri-way. In fact, I don't own any tri-way knives anymore. At one point, I had about 4 of them, and now I have none. So, I guess we'll start off with a size comparison to some knives that you guys are probably familiar with. Spyderco Military and Microtech SOCOM. I'm gonna have to crack open this box real quick. Here's the Spartan Blades Palace. Andrew Demko AD20. I'll do a few more. Sabenza 21. Still don't have a 31. Probably won't for quite a while. Umnumzan. Strider SNG, Hinderer XM18, my last XM18. This is a Gen 4. Love the Gen 4. There you go. And I guess that will be sufficient for this video. Now, very nice size in my opinion. It's probably large for a lot of people. In my opinion, it's perfect. I would consider the military to be a large EDC and this to be a mid-size EDC, whereas anything smaller I would typically consider to be a small EDC, which I know is not the case for most people, but I live in Ohio and it's just different here. So, yeah. I do like the size quite a bit. I like a lot of things about this knife. I think it's extremely well done. And I would have loved to see a Gen 4 version of this knife. So no lock insert and Teflon. Now, this is a Gen 1. It's the first non-custom Firetac that Rick made. And it has Teflon, no tri-way, and a steel insert, which will do this quite often. So you do get a lot of travel with the steel insert. I'm told that it wears slower than titanium. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I've never had a titanium frame lock go to 100% under any kind of use. Now this one is a different story. Steve, you guys know him as Super Steel Steve, hard use tested this and pried with it, batoned it, did all kinds of stuff, got my jeans under the clip, but Steve is an absolute savage, and if there's anything that can break, Steve will break it. So that explains why the lockup on this guy is so late. You can see that, maybe. Yep. So kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. But the lock didn't fail, which brings me to, I guess we'll start with the lock. The steel insert is fine. I know a lot of people don't use their knives that hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. But my biggest gripe, and I didn't experience this until after the conclusive analysis video on the Gen 6 Hinderer. My biggest gripe with the lock insert is that it kept failing. For whatever reason, the lock kept disengaging on my XM18 Skinny. So I was cutting into a branch. I was just trying to cut down a small sapling in my parents' front yard, and the lock failed, which is really, it caught me off guard. And the only reason I know the lock failed, it was very, very slight, but the flipper tab actually pinched my finger. into the handle. Otherwise, I don't think I would have noticed. It didn't fold completely, obviously, because the flipper tab, that would have been quite painful had it actually folded 100%. But yeah, so I think titanium on steel is the way to go. At this price point, I don't think you should have any lock geometry issues. I mean, these are not cheap knives. I've messed with Gen 4 XM18s for a very long time now, and I've used many of them. I've, abused many of them. I use this guy all the time. I dig with it. I do all kinds of shit, and it's never let me down. So I don't think the steel insert is necessary. However, I'm not the majority. I'm by far the minority. And I'm also the minority when it comes to the tri-way pivot. So I just want to address these things because the new variants come with these features. So the tri-way pivot system, my experience has been like this. So the knife arrives new on bearings, and the idea behind the tri-way pivot is that you can insert a steel spacer into the handle, and one of the spacers goes into the blade, and that will allow you to fit the knife with washers. Now, wonderful idea. I am 100% for innovation. In fact, that's one of the biggest driving factors for me when I pick out like a gun or my thing recently has been rifles. So Knights Armament is an extremely innovative company. The E3 bolt, ambi lower, all that stuff. That's what really appeals to me. So it's not like I'm upset that they're trying to push the envelope in terms of technology and knives. It's just, this isn't such an easy thing to get right. Pivot tolerances are not easy to get right once, let alone 3 times separately on each knife that comes out of a factory with no price increase to the knife. So I can't remember exactly which models I had that would not run whichever sets of washers, but I know that certain models wouldn't run PB, Teflon, and I'm well versed in Teflon. I know it takes a couple weeks. I always say a month. You Loctite the pivot and just fuck with the knife for about a month, and you're good, pretty much. This one has increased diameter washers, so it's not quite the same, but you can see no tri-way in this guy. Perfect. It is a little more friction just because of the increased surface area, but I digress. So I had some issues pertaining to the tri-way. Now, in this exact example, I've not had any issues. In Ohio, right now, there's a ton of snow everywhere, and I've been using this guy to bust open bags of salt. So I don't know if you can see in there. There's literally that crystal sticking off of the tie liner or scale is a salt crystal. So I've not taken this knife apart. I've not maintained this knife. I oiled down the blade, but I've not done anything else just because it's not my knife. I didn't want it to rust. But one of the many benefits to Teflon is that it will run in pretty much any condition. There's no grittiness to this knife. There was, for a little bit, some salt got stuck under this lock bar, and it was scraping up against the blade. What I did was I just took some compressed air, pushed the lock all the way out, and just kind of blew the action of the knife out. Other than that, I have not taken this knife apart once. It runs pretty much perfect. I have the pivot tightened down because I don't like drop shot, but this knife will drop shot. Teflon knives are extremely, extremely smooth. Okay, now let's talk about the actual knife itself, not just my shitty opinions on Hinderer's tri-way and lock inserts. Now, this knife is just about perfect in terms of design. Couple key points I want to just point out here. No ridiculous jimping. There's no odd placement of it like there is on the XM18. Jimping does not need to be down here. Jimping does not need to be on the frame of the knife. Maybe on the blade, which this knife has, but it doesn't need to be in this area. That's my main point. There's no jimping anywhere on the handle, which is wonderful. So good to see, and because of that, this knife is just very comfortable. Now, of course, it has a lot to do with the shape of it. It's very Sebenza-like, but yeah, ergonomics are phenomenal on this. So I don't know if anybody else has picked up a regular XM18 and a skinny, but when I compare the two, this compares more favorably to the skinny in terms of ergonomics. So the regular XM18, because of its width, is almost too blocky. It's not that the skinny has a different shaped handle, but it's just too squared off and too blocky, in my opinion. Now, when I got the skinny in hand, which I no longer own because it is a tri-way knife, there was a significant perceived improvement in ergonomics. Now, I think that same deal is going on here because this knife is not blocky. It's not super chamfered either. I mean, it is a little bit, but I wouldn't say it's, let's see. Where's a good example? Something like this. That's really chamfered. And because of that, this knife is very, very comfortable. But I think due to the lack of jimping, the more narrowness of the handle, both in this dimension and in terms of thickness, and just the shape, this knife is ergonomically just about perfect. I mean, there are not many hot spots. You have a lot more freedom in terms of grips when it comes to the tri-way, or not the tri-way, the Firetac than you do with the XM18, because there's much less contouring and just the flipper sticking out, all that stuff. So talking about the blade, 20 CV on the Gen 1. I think they made a small run in S35. The new ones are 20 CV. Hinderer's 20 CV has been phenomenal for me since day one. That's really one of the only reasons why the tri-way XM18 stuck around for as long as it did. Their 20 CV is just good stuff, which is not often the case for even other knives in analog steels in the same price range. So the SOCOMs, for instance, I love the SOCOM so much, but the 204P M390, which are two analog steels to 20 CV, the heat treat is just not done well. Rick does a great job with his heat treat. I think he did a pretty good job on the S35 VN in the past, but my go-to would be this 20 CV, and I can honestly say that's not the case with many other manufacturers. It's not the case with Strider. It's not the case with Microtech. So it's kind of a big deal, in my opinion. Now, the blade is also quite a bit thinner behind the edge. This is about a 16-degree bevel. You can see it's all caked up. I did my best to clean this knife up before doing the video, but whatever. So it's about, I want to say, 22 thousandths behind the edge. It cuts pretty well for a Hinderer. This guy is, God, it's got to be, I mean, a minimum of 30 thousandths behind the edge. This one has had quite a bit of steel taken off. Some of the Gen 6 XM18s tend to be a little bit skinnier or thinner behind the edge. Skinnier, what the fuck? But yeah, still, they're going to be about 25 thousandths behind the edge minimum. The Firetac, I would say, After handling a couple of them, they'll hit 20. They'll hit maybe a little bit below 20,000s behind the edge, but that's still a significant improvement over, you know, say your standard XM18. Now, another thing I like is that this knife is very slim in the pocket, so it carries very, very well. Standard Hinderer clip, which I think is one of the best in the game. Very thin blade too. So when comparing the XM18 to the Firetac in the pocket, this is a much more slimline and just easy to carry knife. I've broken phone screens from this flipper tab banging against my phone for weeks on end, which I realize is my fault, but I just, for whatever reason, I can't carry my knife in a different pocket for my phone. I just, once I get in a habit, I can't break it, which is a definite character flaw on my end. But it's something I do like about the Firetac, is it doesn't have a flipper hanging off. There's no, you know, it carries almost like a Sebenza, which is really what this knife reminds me of. Blade shape, love it. It's a drop point. The last release was similar to this, only it had a recurve. I think recurves are kind of fucking stupid, but that's just me. What else? Pivot. I think it's... Are these... The pivot screw almost looks like just a body screw of an XM18. I don't know really if it is. I haven't paid too much attention to the pivot. Let's see. Yeah, I think it is. The more you know. I guess it's similar to that of an XM18 body screw. I really like the pivot on this guy. I've had no issues. I think Hinderer hardware is fantastic. Overall, yeah, just wanted to make a video talking about this guy. Definitely good to go. Definitely one of my top knives of all time, without a doubt. That's the only reason why it's getting a conclusive analysis video. Yes, there are flaws. There's going to be flaws in every knife at any price point. It's, unless you build a design over the course of a decade, you know, customized to your every want and need, it's not going to be perfect. And even then it might not be. So in terms of production EDC knives, I think this is about as close to perfect as it gets. It is, I mean, truth be told, it kicked the Sebenza 21 out of my pocket for a couple of months. Now the Zon still reigns king over this guy, in my opinion. And that's just due to my own taste. I like hollow ground knives. Hollow ground knives. Gotta slow that down. But yeah, this is a fantastic knife. It is by far probably the best knife in Rick Hinderer's lineup. So with that being said, I'm going to end the video. If you guys have any questions, ask down below. I'm doing my best to get back to people that comment. And if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And I will see you in the next video.